Hey there, boys and girls. Welcome to this week's episode of Hollow Weekly. Nick and George here with Who Won Horror in
1988.
There we go. We went from 2005, took a time machine back to 1988.
Yeah, well, we did 87, but this year is super intriguing.
It's a very interesting, strange, wonky, off-kilter kind of year.
So we're going to decide who had the best year in horror, whether it's an idea, a person, a director, actor, right?
Mm-hmm.
But before we do that, I want to try a little game on you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I have a list of some of the movies from this year. I want you to guess which one of these was featured on the cover of Fangoria. Is the highlight of 1988 out of these movies. You ready?
Okay.
Do you know this answer already?
Nope.
Okay. So 1988 had Child's Play, The Blob, Maniac Cop, Monkey Shines, Serpent in the Rainbow, Pumpkinhead, Friday the 13th Part 7, New Blood, Fright Night 2, Halloween 4, Howling 4, Elm Street 4, Phantasm 2. Out of those movies, what do you think?
Who do I think?
Which one of those movies is
Monkey Shines.
Monkey Shines? That you because I'm asking you this. That seems like that would be an answer. It's actually Fright Night 2.
Oh.
Out of all those, they were really excited about Fright Night 2, which is a better than sequel than people give her credit for. But like the fact that it wasn't the Blob, or like there was, I don't know if they covered him in the other ones, but
Or Halloween 4 or any of that.
this is a weird mix of movies. But I did what we did last time we did this. I did it in tiers, so like bronze, silver, gold, and in the bronze position. I'm going to call this two different things. I didn't know which one to call it the most. I'm going to say the best year horror was had by either round monsters or real teenagers. Okay. So the round monsters and the real teenagers are in the same two movies, The Blob and Pumpkinhead. And I love the round monsters and the creature design you can't get away from. The Blob remake is incredible. Pumpkinhead is incredible. The combination between something so original like Pumpkinhead and something that was basically a remake, but maybe the best remake in terms of quality from the original to the remake, because the original Blob, or you can admit this to each other.
That's Steve McQueen's. One of Steve McQueen's first. You tread lightly, son of a.
This movie is pretty terrible, but it's legendary for the time. It was one of the scariest movies you could come across at the time, so there's a lot of fond memories for it. But I think the remake is really good. It's friggin' Russell and Frank Darabont, right? So like, I mean, just at the beginning of their game, I think Russell's debut was Elm Street 3, right? So
wow,
this is horror royalty here.
I almost put Frank. That was almost one of the people I was going to pick was Frank Darabont
as a winner.
Yeah,
right. So I love the monster design, but what I really want to shout out here is I want to shout out the fact that these two movies, I weirdly discovered that they're chock full of real, authentic teenagers. I have become so sick of the cynical teenagers.
You don't like looking at 30-year-olds in high school?
No.
You don't like the Dear Evan Hansen?
Yeah. No, I don't. But also the whole I Know What You Did Last Summer, they don't do the right thing. They don't behave the way teenagers, like some teenagers would not do the right thing, clearly, but there's a subset of teenagers that's rarely portrayed in horror where they don't fall down the stairs. They don't make all stupid decisions.
Right.
They're not completely immoral and unethical. The teenagers in Pumpkinhead and The Blob are basically trying to do the best they can in the given circumstances and actually do the best they can under the given circumstances. They talk like teenagers I've known. They act the way that you'd expect them to. It's just so refreshing compared to either the way too glossy superhero kind of teenager portrayal or now the new horror portrayal, whatever, which is part of why Fear Street worked so well. Is it was the first time in a while that I had tuned into something that like had the same feel. Because even movies I enjoy, like Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, I've never met a single child that acted in any way that those people act in that movie.
Right.
Right. Like they're not people. They're characters who are moving the plot along or trying to get you to a scare scene or whatever. But
Yeah.
I'm just really impressed by how well handled these are. This is Stan Winston's directorial debut, Pumpkinhead, right? And one of the most amazing things about this movie is that Stan Winston went to his own effects place and said, I'm now your client. You make the creature. I'm giving you full creative control. And let them do it.
No way.
And then he shot it as a director, which is fucking amazing.
That is cool.
Right? Like all of this, the originality of it. Pumpkinhead's not a perfect movie, but as time has progressed and we've gotten less and less likely, like, I mean, I just want, if you watch, here's a double bill for you. If you watch The Blob, or more, better, Pumpkinhead, because I think that's the real jewel of the teenager part of what I'm talking about. If you watch Pumpkinhead and watch how they behave, by the way, Lance Hacker's performance is incredible, right? But if you watch, and he's not a teenager, it just occurred to me
he's one of those older teenagers.
I hadn't mentioned him yet. But if you, I think that I think it's my favorite performance. But if you watch this movie and then you go watch any of the later Jurassic Worlds, like Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom, whatever, and how those people are behaving. And how these people are behaving, you know where the real people are, and you know where the fake people are.
Right.
Right. Well, you'll see it. It'll be clear as day if you just watch those two movies back to back. So anyway, I wanted to give the bronze to. It was a great year for actual teenagers in horror.
Good for them. Now, if you want to be a teenager, you have to be, a super well-looking 32-year-old with rich family that can get you plastic surgery to keep you.
Totally. Look where we've arrived, where we were. And I mean, the Blob, the round monsters part, the creature design, unparalleled. The Blob, amazing. But there's a scene in the Blob where the Blob is attacking a woman in a phone booth, and it is so unique. It is such a perfect little segment of its own. And it's got such a cynical, dark ending for such a fun, thrill ride kind of movie. It's just so interesting. Love it. I like 88 just for that. All right, what's your
88 is a weird year, man. I was looking through this year like, man, what am I like? 2005 for some reason it was really easy, and I kind of struggled this year, like with this year trying to find out like what angle, because I think for 2005 I gave it all of my awards to like ideas, like I gave it to like 6-minute abs for Ryan Reynolds and that kind of thing. So I do have some people in this one.
My next one is,
and then I have some ideas in this one. So for my bronze, and if you're a listener to the show, I'm not the biggest fan of the Child's Play series.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know you were going here. We don't know what we're gonna say.
Yeah.
This is fascinating.
Sometimes we do. Sometimes we like
for this one,
the element of surprise. I loved the remake, but I was not a big fan of the original ones. I just never really connected with them. Like, whatever.
You're too young for that anyway.
Yeah, but I'm giving the bronze to scaring the absolute shit out of me throughout my whole entire childhood to Child's Play, because even though I don't like the franchise,
right,
but I'll be damned if growing up I was not mortified of the Chucky doll.
That's
growing
so
up.
Interesting.
And I have like 3 to 4 very vivid memories of being out in public where they had a Chucky doll and completely like being unwigged. Like I remember. Do you remember Perkins?
Yeah, of course.
Like, I don't know if that was nationwide or like a Midwest thing, but I remember at our Perkins, you'd walk in, which was like a diner.
It was like an IHOP.
Yeah, dinery kind of
right?
vibe.
Was it like an IHOP? I don't know.
Yeah, kind of, really. I mean, they actually had like a display with like desserts, and I don't think we ever got any desserts because I was always getting chicken fingers. Doesn't matter. But I remember they had a Chucky doll in the claw machine when you first walked in. Oh. And I remember being like, "What the fuck is that?" Like, why? Like you're just a kid trying to get some nugs, and you got to get the pants scared off of you. And then I remember being in second grade. We were in second grade. We were in the library, and I remember this girl named Sheila had a Chucky doll in her backpack, and she just whipped it out, and it was pandemonium. Like, everyone was like, "No! What are you doing, Sheila? Put that shit back in your Sheila, we are in the second grade. What are you doing? What the hell are you doing?"
This is awesome.
So I think it's an interesting concept that there's a franchise of movies, because we were just talking the other day. It was actually when they were doing Elvira's thing. I wanted, it was the weekend. I wanted to have something on, and I was at my computer and I was flipping through some channels, and I saw that Child's Play. It ended up being a marathon. They were on the USA channel. They were in Child's Play 1, and they went into Child's Play 2, and I threw it on, and I appreciate it.
Sure.
I understand that it's a competently made movie.
Sure.
It's just not like one of my favorites.
Right.
But like
you're a huge Fright Night fan, so it's not like it's a right.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's so interesting how you can not be interested in something, but it can, like, the Chucky doll dominated fear.
Right.
Like, for that age.
That's so interesting.
It's weird, funny. We were talking about the balance of, like, the Delta variant of COVID.
Yeah.
And I felt like infection versus, spreadability.
Right.
And for
lethality versus spreadability. Right.
Yeah. I felt like Chucky at one point in time had the lethality, like the scare factor. And then as I got older, it kind of tipped back into here.
That's interesting.
And I don't know. I feel like that's worthy of a bronze medal.
Fuck yeah.
Like, scaring kids for,
I
decades.
wonder how many of these you can say that about. That would be,
because like it's
so fascinating.
Yeah, because like I remember around that same time, like you would catch reruns of like Nightmare on Elm Street,
right?
One through whatever on like the Sci-Fi Channel,
right?
And like I remember a few vivid scenes and like that being very scary, and like the idea of Freddy Krueger is scary as a kid,
right.
But the doll, like to me, I would have said that the Chucky doll was scarier than Freddy Krueger.
That's so interesting
at that time.
That's the thing is, I wonder how many of these horror things are leaky, right? Like Jaws probably could scare you without having seen it. Even maybe just even hearing about it might have,
or just hearing the music
might have scared you, especially if you have a fear of sharks, or even if you haven't seen the movie, right? It could still. Exorcist probably scared people, especially religious people, even if they hadn't seen it, right? Because they're afraid that it's unleashing. I mean, bad luck to the cast, and right? There's got to be, and I wonder, and then there's got to be other ones that just absolutely not, right? There's no way you could be scared from afar by the mist.
Yeah, I mean, like
without watching.
I remember my dad like watching one of the Hellraisers,
right,
and not being like frightened of Pinhead.
Interesting. Okay.
Like he looked kind of cool,
right?
Right,
you wanted to join a biker gang with him.
Yeah, like Jason Voorhees was never really.
See, that's different because that was scary as shit to an older generation. But
but like to me, it was like he was big, but he had the hockey mask.
Right.
But like something about the Chucky doll being like the small thing,
so
especially like I remember when the trailers for The Bride of Chucky came out, and he had like all the stitches on his face, and like that
as he slowly deteriorated.
Yeah, that is what like that sent me over the. So 1988 for knocking out Child's Play, like that is absolutely and I feel like I want to give it to some credit to Child's Play. Like I always kind of like rag on it because it's something I can't get into, but like it's also been like a part of my life that scared the hell out of me for so many years.
That is so. The thing is, remember there's that movie Magic with Anthony Hopkins, and that is well known as the most terrifying horror commercial ever aired on TV. If you haven't seen, I mean, it doesn't have the same impact now because we're a lot further along in our decline towards the civilization ending, but
the decline of Western civilization.
But it's, at the time it was terrifying. But that idea is particularly scary from afar, like creepy mannequins, creepy puppets, creepy dolls. I think they can punch above their weight. We have opposite experiences of that because I'm exactly the reverse. I remember a lot of people being more scared of Child's Play than they were of some of the other movies that I would have thought, like anyone who would come to me and said like Child's Play was scarier than Jacob's Ladder, I would have thought was insane, right? Because Jacob's Ladder is just patently terrifying, right?
Right.
But there are people who are more terrified by Child's Play than Jacob's Ladder, and you just explained why and like the case and why that is, and the fact that you just gave me a whole new respect for Child's Play.
It's kind of weird, having it on like one of the monitors while we were playing, like Rocket League or something like that was it was kind of fun to look over. But then I ended up switching to the Elvira special and just ended up because commercials can't do commercials. It'd be like a minute and a half of movie, and then like here's 12 commercials about some pharmaceutical prescription that'll cause you to bleed from your ears and your dick to go inverted, and you're like, I don't want that. Why would I like, what the?
Click.
So
When did you face your Child's Play figure? When did you first watch? Do you remember the first time you watched, or any of the Child's Play? Maybe you didn't even watch the first
what
one.
was there was one that kind of went on Netflix. God, it was like the haunted house version of that, whichever Chucky that is. Because then afterwards, they did the one in the psych ward, and I sat through both of those, and I was like, oof, 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 oof. This is not my thing.
You're like, well, all right. I mean, the remake we watched together.
Yeah, we saw it in the theaters,
and you were fine.
I absolutely loved that. No, but I wanted to watch the ones with Brad Dourif. So
Right.
it was whichever one has. I believe it's the one with the woman in the wheelchair, and I think the one in the hospital where I think it's Brad Dourif's daughter, like
Okay.
in real life. I think I'm pretty sure. They just were. There was I think age conquered the fear more than
that makes so much
more than
sense that it
anything.
would.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Because a couple growth spurts. Once you're you're past 6 feet.
Well, yeah. What's your 20x the size of Chucky?
Yeah. What's your 6'1"? You're like, you know what? Plus, the thing is, you always think about how you could kill the monsters, and to me, it's always
Right.
like, just put them in a vault.
Right.
There's no
Right.
way. Like, it's game
Or
over.
a fucking paper shredder. I mean, he's a doll. Okay. For,
But
yes.
bronze medal.
Yeah. All right. Silver medal, Wes Craven. There are a lot of years that we're going to cover in this series where I'm going to want to give Wes Craven the win, and I'm not quite going to be able to do it. So I'm just going to claim the spot here.
You're gonna do it with Serpent and Rainbow.
Serpent and the motherfucking rainbow. I'm going to do a Serpent and the Rainbow. So it's funny because I think Serpent and the Rainbow is a flawed movie that might not age that great. Right? I think
What makes you say that?
I think it might be heading in the wrong direction, whatever. But I give it the win because first of all, it's yet another example of how much range Wes Craven was not only naturally born with, but was trying explicitly to have. Like, this is a guy who could make wide swaths of different kinds of movies or whatnot. Mm-hmm. But that marketing for Serpent and the Rainbow unsettled me so bad at the time, right? I the whole "don't bury me, I'm not dead." I know it was a little cheesy or whatever, but there's something about it. First of all, we've covered many times on the podcast how much you and I are both there's a lot of fears we don't share. You don't have a lot of problems with heights. I think I do, like whatever. But
No, I
you
cried
do?
putting Christmas lights on the roof.
Oh,
My
okay.
dad's
So
just
you
hanging
almost-
off the side. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, man? It's just lights.
Okay, so we share all these fears, but Buried Alive or all that stuff is one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Bill Pullman should have been in horror more. He was amazing in Lost Highway. He's amazing in this.
Great in Casper.
Great and awesome.
Gotta grab him where you can, George.
That's what grab West Craven where I can. But it's also just the fact that to try something like this, which was based on a very problematic nonfiction book, but to have in your repertoire Red Eye over here and Serpent and the Rainbow over here and the Scream franchise over here, and to do so the thing is, and the true reason I'm picking this is fucking Malignant again.
Oh boy,
It's time to get off.
Gotcha.
So because Malignant was trying to do the down and dirty indie Last House on the Left, Hills Have Eyes kind of thing.
Right.
That over the top, like whatever. And it just doesn't ring true to me in that case. And Wes Craven could still throw that fastball like at any point of his career. And I think we all know, as much as we love John Carpenter, that John Carpenter's greatest skill at this point is either, getting high or playing video games. I'm not sure which, besides the making music part, right? But he's amazing and a legend and one of my favorite directors. But Wes Craven was stretching himself and throwing fastballs and doing weird franchise cappers like New Nightmare all the way up into the end. And this is just another. It's like when they do the tree rings, like when they take the sample out and they're like, this is just one of the rings in the tree that I love, that it's there, right? Even if it's not perfect, even if it's got problems, even whatever, I'm not even rooting for the movie so much as just the idea that someone could go, I want to make a political thriller over here, Red Eye, and I want to make a voodoo horror movie over here and this, and I want to save the slasher genre over here with this, and I want to. It's amazing to me. So I'm giving him the silver just because
Voodoo's pretty cool.
Voodoo's pretty cool, but it's also this is one of those things. This was one of those movies where the marketing got me the way the marketing got some people for The Witch, or the marketing got some people for some of the, I don't know which more like It Comes at Night for some reason had great marketing and was a terrible movie.
Yeah, I was like a really like kind of scary looking poster too. You're like, oh, what is it coming at night? And you're like, oh,
oh, not a horror movie.
Not a horror movie. Oh,
that's what's coming. But anyway, I'm probably there's going to be years where
you could bury it like Bill Pullman and be like, I'm not a horror movie. I'm not a horror movie.
Then I want to bury it. I want to use that paralyzing potion to just keep that.
Just blow dust in its face.
All right, what you got for silver?
By the way, that's a great silver. I want to. That's I
mean,
I enjoy
it's not
that.
really. I'm honestly, there are years where
I was looking at
like Scream 4 is not going to win, even though I love it. Like I'm going to want to give Wes Craven the win that year, but I'm going to find. I don't know. I don't remember what year Scream 4 is, but I'm going to end up having to pick like Misery
you know what.
But so like
Serpent in the Rainbow was the mint chocolate chip of that year. Like whenever you go to like an ice cream parlor, you're always like, I'm definitely going to try this, I'm definitely going to try that. But then like you just look at like that color green,
right?
And you're always like, man, I kind of want to get that. But then you're like, no one eats mint chocolate chip. I knew 2 people who ate mint chocolate chip.
Ooh, I've never met anyone who eats
it was my same friend who also ate unsalted pretzels. So
funny
fill in the
story,
blanks.
when the pandemic first hit. Remember that?
Oh yeah,
the March.
Oh yeah, you were on a pretzel kick,
like
weren't you?
Invisible. I went to Vons, I think. Like, remember when?
Oh yeah, we were going.
You had to go in hazmat suits, and you thought everything you.
I
Couldn't
remember
touch
the first time I put a mask on. I felt like a robbing a bank at at that Vons.
That was at that Vons, right? And everything was gone. I mean, it was just the emptiest I've ever seen, which is sad. I mean,
yeah.
But there was plenty of mint chocolate chip ice cream though in the freezer. It was like 2 kinds of ice cream. There was plain vanilla and mint chocolate chips. I remember seeing like
that Vons came in clutch because I remember who's the lady that wrote the Monster Squad book, Heather Wilcox. Anyways,
It'll come to me.
I remember she was like, I can't find any meat, and I was like, I felt like the dude in like the spy movies in the trench coat, like, psh, like in the parking lot, like, go to the Vons on Glendale Avenue and you'll find yourself some carne asada. Like,
they really did come through clutch. You're right.
Yeah.
They did have some things.
Yeah,
Nobody else had anything.
that was the place to hit it up. So all right, well, second that's actually my second place is the Vons on Glendale Avenue.
Covered.
Glen Avenue. Okay, so my silver is actually people who won gold. Probably won the gold in they probably won the gold in '89 when the Oscars were held. But it's so weird when you put in, while doing the research, I was like, horror movies 1988. Beetlejuice does not show up.
Weird.
Yeah, but you do movies in 1988 and Beetlejuice comes up.
Okay.
It's very, very weird because I definitely consider Beetlejuice like in the horror movie.
I consider horror too, but I can see.
I get it.
Totally.
Right.
I can see why it's not, but right.
All right. So I'm giving it to Steve Laporte, V. Neal, and Robert Short for their Oscar. If they would end up going on to win the Oscar for the makeup and effects in Beetlejuice.
I love this series. I love because you're blowing my mind right now. I did not expect you to say this, and I love this choice.
Yeah. No. Well, I was looking at it and I was like, well, you know, a lot of the times when we're talking about horror movies in certain years, they're never Oscar contenders,
right?
Let alone Oscar winners.
Right.
And I was like, there's no way we talk about this year and not like their work. Plus, it's such an iconic like look, the Beetlejuice look, and everything's look in Beetlejuice is weird and amazing and fun to look at.
But it's so well done. You could time capsule that shit, and 1,000 years from now, when humans have 10 eyes and are seeing in 200D, it's still gonna look great.
Yeah, like what's funny is there's some movies that like feel like the year they came out. Like we were just talking about Dawn of the Dead before we came up here, and we're like, it definitely feels and looks like it came out in the 70s.
Pumpkinhead does.
Yeah, Pumpkinhead feels the same way.
Feels like a late 80s movie for sure.
What's interesting about this year, I feel like because I did get to check out parts of the Blob, which there's a lot of like funny parts in the Blob I didn't expect.
There are.
There's scenes from the Blob that don't feel like they're from that year. Like but there's a lot of scenes because like I grew up watching Beetlejuice and I had no idea. I always thought Beetlejuice growing up came after Batman for some reason.
Okay.
I don't know why, because I was born in '91 and that, by the time I was able to like comprehend movies like Batman Returns and all that other shit was out. But like I always thought Beetlejuice was a more recent movie in his work, and when I found out that it was '88, like before Batman, and before he came up with the characters for Nightmare Before Christmas, like it just doesn't date. Like there are some things, but I think overall, like when you get like a bird's eye view and you look at it, like
well, yeah, of course, anytime you're portraying people living a life, there's going to be things that kind of set them in that time period, but it feels mythological.
Yeah,
it feels like something that it's just.
Well, it's funny because
the time part isn't important.
I was listening to Michael Keaton talk about. I think he was talking about this on Mark Maron's podcast a long time ago, and I think it was during this interview where he was talking about trying to figure out the character of Beetlejuice, and so he had like a wardrobe rack from like the studio or the production company or whatever, and he would just grab a piece of clothing from like different decades because he realized that Beetlejuice is a man from every time.
Amazing.
And it stands the test of time because
that's amazing.
Isn't that wild?
That's such a good thing to know.
Damn. And also like there's little touches on like the Beetlejuice makeup itself that like really sets apart. Like my favorite, this is so weird. Like out of the whole Beetlejuice look, the thing that I always look at whenever we're watching it is just like the green,
the moss.
Yeah, yes,
totally.
How cool of a touch is that?
Same thing, totally. And the fact that you and I are thinking the same thing at the same time is a testament to how well they did it. Right?
Yeah. So
I literally was like, he's gonna say moss.
Yeah, right. No, like it just touches like that. Totally. I think are just so genius. So there's I had to give the silver award to the gold winners.
You paused before you said it. I wonder how many listeners to this episode are gonna fill it in before you say it with moss or grass or green mold or like it's so good.
Yeah, and what's funny is I guess V. Neal was also I guess she was either a judge or a guest judge on the side. They had that sci-fi show where they did VFX makeup.
Yeah,
and like even my sister, who she can't go through like a haunted maze without crying. Like she's a very big scaredy cat. I showed her the photo of Garen with V and her Oscar, and she was like, "Oh my god, I love her. I love all this work." And so like they won the Oscar Gold. They stood the test of time.
Michael Keaton stood the test.
Stood the test of time.
Tim Burton stood the test of 15 years.
I was wondering where the jab was on that one. So I felt pretty good about giving that.
Oh, totally. I'm amazed it's not the gold. I'm excited to hear what your.
My gold is interesting, and this
was interesting. I'm jealous of that answer. That's a great.
Well, yeah, I actually was watching an interview with V. Neal before you came over because she also did like Ed Wood and a bunch of other stuff,
incredible.
And. That's just a makeup artist who like I really haven't like gotten to like dive into like their world,
right?
And like now I'm like super interested. Like that's probably gonna be doing like the rest of the weekend. It's just like her and that team. Like what else are these guys like going to do?
Awesome.
It's pretty killer stuff.
I love it. I love it. And Edward Scissorhands is the same way. I mean, even though there are some things that look like a time period, I think it's just gonna sail through time. There's a movie called Russian Ark. About the Hermitage Museum in St. Petersburg, or whatever it's called now. And it
if you're a film student, there's a week where people just go, "Oh, did you see Russian Ark? They did it all in one take," and you're like, "They didn't really do it in one take. I mean, it looked like they did a bunch of takes." Yes.
But I always wondered why it was called Russian Ark, and the reason is because they think of the Hermitage Museum as an ark. Like Noah's Ark that sails, but it sails through time.
Whoa!
With valuables inside of it, like 2 of the best paintings, 2 of the best sculptures, 2 of the best. It's like an ark, but through time, and it always stuck with me. What a cool idea that was, right? And I feel like Beetlejuice is sailing through time for sure, which is really
and you got that Michael Keaton quote
really cool.
to back you up.
Yeah, totally. All right, but the actual winner of horror in 1988 is Clive Barker.
Ooh.
Clive fucking Barker. I didn't know this was happening. I knew pieces of it, but I went back and looked, and I didn't realize all this was happening at the time. But Clive Barker, it seems, I may get some of this, and there are probably people who are more knowledgeable about it than me, so if there's anything, just message us and correct us later. But the way I understand this is that he sort of intended to direct the follow-up to Hellraiser. It came literally the year after Hellraiser. It came fast.
It's funny. I was just rewatching Joe Blow's video about the production of Hellraiser 2 before he came over. It got greenlit while Hellraiser was in post-production. The studio knew that it was going to be so good, and he couldn't juggle everything. So then he hired I forget.
Right, but wait. Now. So watch this. So, but he was too busy. But why was he too busy? He was too busy because he had obligations to finish his short novel Cabal and his promised screenplay. So Cabal was going to be published in Books of Blood Volume 6, which was the most influential book of horror short stories that wasn't Stephen King at its time. Right? If it wasn't Peter Straub, but I don't think so, because I think he mainly did long form work. And then that Cabal turns into Nightbreed, and the screenplay he was working on turns into Lord of Illusions. This guy is doing the most original work in horror, and he's too busy creating more of the most original work of horror over here to work on the follow-up to the one over here. And the fact that they were able to take a sequel that was so... like what do they call this in theater? They call it a chamber piece, where it's basically 1 or 2 rooms. You can do it low budget, right? There's not a lot of set, like whatever. Because Hellraiser, people, all they remember is the Cenobites who aren't in it very much, and all the weird perversity and whatever. But it's a lot of just people in rooms, right? They did the strange. We were just talking about how great The Blob was as a remake and compared to the original, but to take this dirty, like very claustrophobic, brutal piece, and to keep the spirit of it, but to also event horizon it and have it look amazing at the same time, and to do all that, and that's just one of the 3 or 4 spells Clive Barker was casting simultaneously at the same time. He was like Emperor Palpatine in Return of the Jedi, falling down the shaft, just throwing out lightning bolts of greatness in every direction.
He wasn't missing.
Right, it was incredible. Like, and so just from that, I find all of what was going on there amazing. But on a personal note, I'm choosing it as the gold because... and as horror fans or genre fans or movie fans in general, whatever, I think we all got to admit that we're wrong sometimes, right? Like, I did not like Hellraiser as a franchise as a kid, and I thought Hellraiser 2 was goofy as shit from afar. I had never watched it full as a kid. I loved Hellraiser, but Hellraiser 2 was too strange for me, which is weird because I loved Phantasm. And it feels like because there's some Phantasm DNA in there. But going back, every time I rewatch this movie, it gets better. It just gets better. It's amazing how much they did with how little they had to work it. I have great memories of watching it with you and reviewing it with you. But I just went and rewatched a chunk of it before this to see if can I really pick this as the gold. And the exquisite weirdness,
dude. It's got one of the most badass lines ever.
Which one?
God, I forget the doctor's name, but it's right after he gets transformed into a Cenobite, and then he has that line where he's like, "And to think I hesitated."
Yes,
that's the most Hellraiser line.
Oh yes,
ever,
and it's the most punk rock line.
I love that. Like I remember, like we were watching that with Joe Bob on the last drive-in, and when he said that line, you're just like, oh, that guy's not here to fuck around. Like, totally. He's really not.
Totally, but also, the Christie is really an interesting character. Julia, so first of all, she doesn't. Her relationship with Frank changes. She gets more powerful, but then the way she dies is the weirdest. Fuck. She's basically snakeskin death, like whatever. So all that, whatever. But and then also, I'm just coming off the buzz of I really enjoyed the Candyman, whatever we're calling this,
It's like kind of sequel-y kind of.
sequel, right? But one of the reasons I really like Candyman is, Invisible Man's a good example of this. Invisible Man's a great horror movie to me, the newest one. But and there's a lot of things that are really fun to look at. But if I was gonna if I had to randomly, if you were gonna randomly do a spin a Wheel of Fortune and pick 5 stills from one of these movies, and I was gonna have to live looking at it on my wall for a year, right? I would pick Revenge, Shudder's Revenge, over Invisible Man, because a lot of Invisible Man looks boring to me, right? Candyman, even if I think even if it's got flaws, or even if you didn't like it, or even if your allegiance is all to the original, whatever, it's just palpably a gorgeous movie. There's gorgeous scenes. It starts gorgeous. The visuals are gorgeous, right? And there are scenes in this movie that I forget. I forgot that fucking Julia comes back. And she's skinless, but she's living in the whitest apartment I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Which is the most randomly... It's literally the most perversely place to put a person who's skinless. Is like, here's an all-white... I was horrified just from like, where are you going to move? What are you going to do? Like, for a second, my brain couldn't comprehend why we're even standing here. But there's imagery there that looks as good as Candyman on probably like 1/100th of the budget. I didn't look it up, but just an incredible accomplishment for what it is. And that's only like 1/4 of what Clive Barker was up to.
It's the Hellraiser arc. Just traveling. Everyone's traveling through time.
Everyone's traveling through time
on this episode.
So I'm giving Clive the gold, well deserved, because he's a genius, and I'm blown away by the fact that I first of all, I had misassessed the whole Hellraiser franchise, but Hellraiser 2 especially, and then also the fact that it was able to keep what was good in its predecessor and expand it. That's the hardest thing to do when you're trying to do something like that, right? And it did it so successfully. Gold.
All right. Well, my gold. Hellraiser 2. no, it's very close. It's so my
that would be great though.
No, I mean it kind of is though.
Oh,
like
shit.
I'm not joking. Like I'm not joshing. I'm
Okay.
being serious.
Yeah,
like so my number one playlist. I was originally going to go with Funeral Homes for the service of remakes suck. Because
that is great.
Because the Blob, and actually what's interesting is
remakes and sequels.
Yeah, remakes.
Horror fans all pretend to hate, but there are good ones.
This year knocks both of them out. In the 80s alone, knocked it out with The Fly and The Thing. So you have The Fly, The Thing, The Blob being being remakes.
Right.
The Bob, that'd be a scary movie.
It would if it was a Twin Peaks.
So I was trying to make that my number one, but in reality, it's my Halloween playlist.
Okay, maybe.
So the soundtrack for Hellraiser 2, it was. So 2 things came to mind. One, Danny Elfman, and the other one, Christopher Young, who did Hellraiser 1 and 2. And it's crazy, man.
This is your real choice.
This is my real choice. This is my
all the movies, because I love a lot of the horror movies this year. The fact that you and I landed in the same place, and neither of us liked Hellraiser growing up, is just awesome.
And that's the thing is, my list starts with a character in a franchise I didn't like that I have a lot of respect for because it scared me, and then it's ending with the same thing. Like the difference is I genuinely do love the Hellraiser,
right?
At least the first 2. Yep. A lot, I
don't love any of the other ones.
Like I've watched a lot of behind the scenes.
I watched some of Hellraiser 3, but I wish the franchise was smaller, frankly.
Well, we're getting the remake from the guy who did Halloween, which
hopefully would be good.
I hope it's good. It's so funny. I was rewatching scenes from Halloween 2018, Nightmare on Elm Street 2010, just to see like what really went wrong, and oh shit, where am I going with this? Basically, I'm now a little worried about Hellraiser being done by the Halloween guy, and I'm the most optimistic person. Like
You are,
in the
but I still think you're underselling Halloween 2018. I feel like you did when we first saw it. You came around for a minute.
You know what,
and
though?
now you're still underselling. I'm open to the fact that Halloween Kills will not be good. It's possible, but I still think Halloween 2018 is really well done. But
It's also part of a trilogy.
If Hellraiser remake is as good as that, I'll feel like I dodged a bullet at least.
But here's the thing: Hellraiser, all I think it's what David Green, all he has to do is just get Christopher Young.
Right.
I'm telling you.
Okay. Yeah.
Because, so I love posting. There's a post I like to do every Halloween where it's like, hey, let's make a Halloween playlist. Post your favorite thing, and it usually gets 1,000 comments. People like to add their thing, and then I post the Hollow Weekly Spotify playlist because it's got like over
in the Facebook group. Join it if you're not there,
and follow the Hollow Weekly's horror playlist on Halloween. It's got like 11 followers, and I was like,
we need more than that.
but it's on Spotify. I'm like, I didn't even know Spotify had followers for shit like that. So it was kind of cool.
11 is a lucky number.
But I was looking at listening to like other horror scores because a lot of it is like a lot of like the 60s novelty Halloween kind of songs and stuff like that, and then you put in John Carpenter. There's a handful of like horror
some
movie
Monster
scores.
Mash, there's some Tubular Bells, right?
Right. There's a lot of stuff like that, and I was like, there's got to be more movie scores that I could put in there. And it's funny, we were talking about creepy dolls, and I put in the Dead Silence soundtrack in there, and it's good, not great.
Okay.
And so then I listened to. I also have some soundtrack or some scores from like Scream 2.
And you're talking standalone, like the Dead Silence, because it's not like you watched the Dead Silence to judge the music. You just played the music.
Yeah, I was just typing in horror movies.
You're not judging the music by what it does for the scene visually.
Just listening to it.
Just listen, right?
Yeah, and so it's interesting. I had some songs from Don't Breathe in there. I had some tunes from I believe Scream 2.
Okay.
And they're not those ones aren't bad. The Mummy was probably the closest thing that I could listen to where you could listen to the music and sort of get it. Okay. But what are they trying to convey? Like what are they trying to make you feel? Like there's a song that's just called Imhotep, and like you sort of get that idea.
Right, it's John Williams music. You know how you're supposed to feel right now.
Yeah,
right.
You get the idea.
Right.
And a lot of these soundtracks to me don't really do it. Like a lot of them are usually scary to be scary, or they're creepy to be creepy, or there's something that me personally can't put my finger on. But the Hellraiser soundtrack, when I listen to it, I can, without even thinking of like the images of hell and Hellraiser, my brain automatically fills in my own personal hell, like what I would envision.
That's really cool.
Like a land of just like lava and fire and torture and shit like that. Right. Like it's sort of
you play your little Event Horizon reel in your head as you're listening.
Yeah,
to the music.
It does that to me, and it does it differently every time.
That's so cool.
It does it differently every single time, and it almost kind of reminds me of like the feelings I got when I would play like Diablo 2 or Diablo 3 or something like that. Like it really does something different.
So it's super evocative.
That's awesome. And it's one of those things. Like after we watched Hellraiser 2 with on the last drive-in, like I remember sitting in bed that night and I went to Spotify and I remember listening to the soundtrack and. There's just something different about that soundtrack that stands out to almost everything else. The only thing that competes with that would be Danny Elfman and the Beetlejuice score.
Right, of course.
But those are
the fact that they're even in the same conversation is a miracle for the Hellraiser too,
because Danny Elfman's a juggernaut. A juggernaut. But what's interesting about those two, like those are the first scores that came to mind. Before he came over, I was trying to be like, well, what's the score for The Blob?
Right.
And I couldn't find anything, but I had to get set up, so I couldn't really find anything. And I was like, trying to look at all these other movies.
Dude, I get it.
So the only other thing,
because I got to find some freeway talk.
The only other score that would have came close, funny enough, rounding up my list, would have been the Child's Play score. Because that one actually you get it, and that's the phrase I have to use is like you just get it. Like when you hear it, you understand what this story is. And then, but the fourth place they would be the Dickies, and with their song that they did for Killer Clowns from Outer Space, just because it has that electric guitar going dun 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 dun, 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 and like that's just fun.
That's awesome. I am so excited that you chose this. It is my favorite thing that has happened for this podcast in a while, because that is, to me, it makes, first of all, it makes so much sense for you, right? But it also, we were talking in I forget which episode, but we were talking in a previous episode about Masters of Horror, and in Cigarette Burns, that there's a killer movie. It's basically a killer movie. It drives you insane when you watch it, right? The fact that this is what horror fans would want, right? What you would want is, you would want a movie that makes you film a horror movie in your head while you're hearing it, right? But that almost never happens. It either just gives you the image. Like when I hear Tubular Bells, I don't independently create a horror movie in my head. I see stairs.
Yeah.
Right? And that's cool. That's great.
You see what you should see is a 45-minute experimental album released in 1970.
But the fact that this is doing that for you is just my favorite thing. I am so excited that you chose this. I love this answer. That's the true gold. So the Blob is pretty legendary for having an incredibly goofy theme song, the original Blob, right? And I'm trying to find it while you're talking.
Oh, they sing it. The Blob, beware of the Blob. Yeah, it's on the playlist. Beware of the Blob. Yeah, it's on the Halloween playlist, brother. I've been bopping to that for the past couple days.
That's amazing. But the fact that we had because to be honest with you, there's a lot of great horror movies in this year. It's a weird year though. It's not like it's all filled with top tier
because it's
stuff.
like Halloween
there's
4,
some strange,
Nightmare 4.
Right, totally. Right, there's some because there's other Halloween sequels that are better than 4, and there's other, I mean, Phantasm 2 might be the best sequel in that series. It's arguable, but a lot of these aren't the best entries in their franchises that are happening this year, even if we have positive emotional attachments or good memories of them, or there's great things in them, but they're spotty, right?
Right.
But it's blowing my mind that I started this thinking I was going to go with the Blob. I really appreciate that remake. I love watching it every time. Every time I've come across it on television, I've not been able to walk away from it. Right.
Right.
So just in terms of pure enjoyment, sometimes we try to pick what we think is the best. We're trying to get the right answer. Like you're putting your pressure on yourself as like a reviewer or whatever. And I was like, fuck, I'm just going to pick the one I love the most. Right. Because the Blob was the one. And by the time I was done rewatching my chunk of Hellraiser 2, I'm like, no, this is the most fun. This is what totally won me over, totally changed where I was headed, right? And the fact that the Blob's heritage is this music and the Hellraiser 2 is your final choice, and that these music are so different, is just so great. I love where this ended.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's an interesting place to end it because, not even 10 years ago, like 3 years ago. If you were like,
right.
Well, actually, but whenever because we did a review of Hellraiser, whenever that was, year before that, if you were like, Nick, you're going to really love the Hellraiser, at least Hellraiser 1 and 2, and you're going to become deeply interested in the lore behind everything and the behind the scenes of how it was all made, I'd be like, probably not. Nah.
Right.
No way in hell. Totally. No way in hell.
No, and if you had told me we were recording an episode heading into October and we were picking whatever, I probably would have thought I would pick Pumpkinhead because it's the one I associate most with Halloween season out of these, mixes or combinations that isn't Halloween 4, which is not my favorite. I actually weirdly like the Halloween 6 Producers Cut way more than Halloween 4, so it's not even my favorite sequel in that block of, 4, 5, 6 or whatever. But yeah, my mind is blown and I love it, and I just instantly want to go listen to that music while I'm walking home because it's dark. I'll freak myself out. It'll be great.
Dude, you need to do what I do, and so I'll put the Hollow Weekly's horror playlist on Spotify, and when you're walking behind someone to the Halloween theme, like it feels really cool because you're like, oh man, it's kind of scary. But in reality, they're probably hearing me breathe through my nose like a maniac. They're like, who the?
They're having a whole different
Yeah,
experience.
they're like, there's some gross dude behind me who can't breathe walking up a slight incline.
Right. That is awesome. But that, to your point, definitely go find that on Spotify or wherever.
Yeah, I mean, check it out. I can look it up right here. I was trying to hit a certain threshold of like oh yeah, it's right here, 11 likes. What's funny is it has like all these like different like scores and like 60s kind of novelty songs like Napoleon, whatever, they're coming to take me away, that kind of stuff. But like the posters that it put up top was Nightmare Before Christmas, The Descendants, which is a Disney Channel show, and then Mickey's Monster Bash. So when you look at it, it looks like a kid's playlist. So it's very deceiving.
It's very deceiving.
Very deceiving. But it has
trying to suck you in.
Yeah, but it's got a 14 hours and 37 minutes of
this playlist. I hope you don't have some of the stuff that we love together or I love on this list. The transition from the Descendants song to like Kronos Quartet Black Angels will be terrifying.
No, I can actually tell you there is. I need to add the Philip Glass Kronos Quartet Dracula stuff, but there will not be, what's that one song like Black Angel?
Black Angels,
That's not
good, because that would be like,
no, because
that could be fun. But
no, because I wanted to have it be like,
you want to be enjoyable.
Yeah, enjoyable.
Right,
and
you want to walk behind people, make them think you have COVID. You're enjoying you don't want to have to listen to Black Angels while you're doing that.
Yeah, because then they'll turn around and they'll see that I've fallen from a heart attack, and that's not fun for anyone. So,
right. So Threnody for Hiroshima is not on our playlist. Okay,
not this one. Not this one. I'll do the Hollow Weekly's heart attack playlist and put.
Well, this was awesome. I want other people to give us their winners in horror. Come to the Facebook page, message it, and I'll reshare it on the page.
Let us know who won,
and let me know if you update me. I love our updates now. This is the only time I find out because I never look about our reviews.
Well, we did crack 50.
Great, finally, thank God.
Yeah,
I can retire.
All right, no, because now our next goal,
the stretch goal,
51.
Wow.
Yeah, I want to make it easy.
That's how you do it in archery. They say you aim way above the bullseye. So
well, I was thinking about what was that the Japanese camp where they had American soldiers in World War II, and they would make them run to death.
Oh God!
And you were telling me about that.
The Bataan Death March.
Yeah, the Bataan Death March, where there was
no camp. No one made it to the camp. It was the march.
It was the march.
It was the problem.
But you were telling me that guys who were like, I got to get back home to my family, like they were thinking long term they would die, but the guys would be like, oh, I just got to make it to that pole. I got to make it to that tree.
Yeah, there was a guy in the book they were interviewing. It was really chilling, and he basically said, the people who I was walking with, because if you made one mistake, you were in trouble, right? If you stepped in a puddle and now your foot is cold, and now at nighttime it's going to drop to 31 degrees and your foot's going to freeze into a block of ice. Mm-hmm. You had to watch where you're going, not get injured. It was your only chance. And he was like, there were all people around me, and they were like, I got to make it home. I got to make it home to my wife. I got to make it home to my kid. He was like, they were the first people to go. It was the people who were like, there's 7 trees. I got to make it to that 7th tree. Now I got to make it to that hill. Now I got to make it right. That they were the ones who made it, who thought that way.
Well, not to steal from their story too much, but 51 reviews would be...
Oh my God! Worst analogy.
Yeah, this took a sharp turn. Yeah. Anyways, someone be that tree and be the 51. Be the tree.
Oh my God!
Hey, listen, man. I don't know how to get out of this one. I really don't. So we just gotta dive. We just gotta jump in and make it happen, man. So be the tree.
Yeah, but we appreciate it because you see them all, and then you tell me about them in this moment. So you're in real time. I'll get to enjoy if there's any more.
Well, we'll find out next week when we do our next episode.
And also, no one took me up on this. I did get some messages and responses about who won 2005, which I really appreciate. We had some really interesting conversations. We should actually do a part of an episode where we play some of that, where we talk about some of what the responses are, because people are doing interesting voting.
Oh, yeah.
But no one took me up on suggesting what year we should do next. So I'll try one more time. Ooh. I would love for someone out there to
maybe
just come to the
post.
page, message, and have us give us if we get 4 or 5 suggestions, we'll just run them as a poll in the group and we'll pick the winner.
Yeah,
so
we'll just go run.
That'd be super fun because it I like being taken by surprise, and some of these we're gauging, right? We're not going to do that year because the winner's obvious, but and if someone gives a suggestion and we're forced by the poll to do a year that I think is going to be whatever, but it might turn out to be amazing, and that'll be the best.
The only way to do it is to do
Anyway,
it.
all right, cool. Be the tree.
Be the tree. Talk to you guys later. Stay scary. Watch a bunch of horror movies because this episode
It's
will be
time.
releasing on like October 1st.
Happy
Like
October.
it's like it's go time.
It's go time.
All
I
right,
love it.
be the tree. Bye guys.